apologies. You can tell it to the people that are losing their homes because our industry is shut down. It's not going to put food on their table or pay for their college education. That's what I sleep with every night. The future of the industry.
Welcome to Kinozoid. This week, we talk about what Tom Cruise himself said, the future of this fucking industry. I am David Fauci. I am joined by Peter Oudlog. There we go, Peter Oudlog. And it will be an interesting discussion. We don't have all the answers. We're not at all the forefront of knowledge about this, but we've been studying this industry for a long time, and we have some thoughts and kind of what's been going on. Originally, this episode is going to be full Tom Cruise, full Mission Impossible, but with the news of the SAG AFTRA strike and the Writers Guild strike going on at the same time, and some of the events in the past week with some of the comments some of these executives have made, I feel like we need to talk about this. But before we get into the nitty gritty, we saw some fun stuff this week, didn't we, Pete? We saw July 3rd, Jaws 3D in digital 3D, and that was amazing. I don't know. It's my first time seeing it.
That was a good 3D conversion.
Yeah,
I didn't get ahead. I didn't realize it was so aggressively 3D at points. Because all I've seen is the home video of the red and blue glasses. It'll give me a headache.
Yeah, that was my first time seeing that movie. You've probably seen it a few times.
Yeah, I've seen it even with the headache inducing home 3D.
Right, the cardboard glasses and
I think I told you the thing I enjoyed the most is just the mental idea that Dennis Quaid is coked out of his mind.
Right.
Majority of the movie.
I love how it was filmed at SeaWorld, and the in the audience of the theater we were at, there was actually someone who was at SeaWorld when they were filming it, so that was kind of cool. I made the mistake of eating an edible before this movie, and it kicked in right when the 3D started, and I don't know if thankfully I was able to do it. I was kind of unsure for a bit. It's not a great movie. We can just say that right then and there. It's very much a cheap cash-in. Even the 3D was done cheaply, because instead of filming stuff in 3D, it's just a bunch of like matte images kind of superimposed so they can cheap kind of the 3D effect. The shark looked really bad. We learned, or I don't know if you knew about this, but we learned about the original idea for Jaws 3D called Jaws 3.
People Zero, yes.
Yes, and that sounds amazing. It was going to be Joe Dante and so John Hughes was going to write it.
Yep.
And it was going to be very much a satire on Jaws. It'd be like a filming of a movie within a movie, like New Nightmare or something like Gremlins 2, where they're filming a Jaws sequel at a beach and then a shark attacks. And the opening shot would have been the writer of the book of Jaws in a swimming pool, and shark comes in. Yeah. That sounds great.
It'd be funny if he was doing another news report like the first movie.
Yeah. Was he doing the news report in that one?
Yeah, he's the reporter on the beach in the first movie.
Oh, that's cool.
And so that would be hilarious to see him get eaten by his creation, or the sequel to his inspiration.
Have you read the book or no?
I have, yeah.
Is it pretty good?
It's really good. It's quite different
from the movie.
None of the characters are likable.
Really? Okay.
They're all horrible people.
Yeah. You got especially a sea captain and everything.
Wind isn't the person that's the worst is Hooper.
Okay.
Richard Dreyfuss's character. He's complete ass. He's a complete ass. Look.
What's cool about the theater we saw this at, they do weekly horror films, and since they've been getting their digital 3D projectors back because of Avatar, there's been a lot of these old movies they've been showing in kind of the newer 3D. Like we did Friday 13th 3D a few months ago, and that was a blast.
Yeah.
That's the best we've ever seen it. Like we saw it in 3D before, but it wasn't quite the same.
That was more like a homebrewish type of 3D conversion.
Yeah, from my understanding, the guy who owns that reel kind of created back when the studios were auctioning with different companies for how to do theatrical 3D, with Avatar and everything. And so he basically bought this technology and has these custom made glasses and stuff, and has these like 35 prints. So it's not digital 3D, but it is the same type of depth, I guess, because it's not red and blue, it's clear, but it's on like a film print. Just kind of interesting.
Yeah, he made a very strong point that please return the glasses at the end of the show.
Don't touch the lenses. These are the only ones I got. They're expensive. We're not getting any more. Yeah, he was very adamant about that. And we also saw like a Paul Naschy film in 3D. It was like the first time it's ever been screened like that. That was a cool night.
That was like a werewolf Spanish type of movie.
Yeah, he's pretty much the Spanish version of Lon Chaney. But we also saw Thing from Another World, which is one you've seen many times. I've never seen it before. That was actually really fun, considering, like you were saying, it's 70 years old. It holds up very well. Yeah. Effects hold up very well. It's very different, yet very similar to the 82 John Carpenter Thing.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is being kind of the monster, and they're in the North Pole instead of the South Pole, and it's not as grisly, and it's not the who's who type thing. It's just there's this monster, we gotta eat it, fight it, because it's like a vegetable monster or something.
Yeah, the original movie, it's a vegetable monster. The cast is immense. There's always a new person showing up in the screen. It's like, how many people does this base have?
There's people that show up, and I forgot they showed up like 20 minutes before, and they're just in the background of a scene.
Yeah, they'll show up in the beginning, and then they don't show up until the end of the movie, and they're like, where the hell has that person been this entire time?
Right.
Like, if this was the John Carpenter version,
we'd have everybody
long gone.
Yeah. And it was like the first like fire stunt in these movies where someone is on fire, actually on fire. So that's kind of cool. Obviously it's the whole communism kind of subtext.
The full burn fire, that was great.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. The whole open the door, close the door type thing got pretty funny at the beginning. So those are just some of the older movies we saw in the past few weeks. We try to see a bunch of stuff as we will later in this week. So yeah, as Tom Cruise said, the future of this fucking industry, and it is at a boiling point right now. This is a very complex issue with very many variables, and there's just a lot going on here. In regards to studios, in regards to union strikes, in regards to streaming, in regards to distribution, in regards to theater. So it's very, very complex. So we're just going to start at one and kind of go down the list. So I guess the most important one and pressing one, currently right now is the WGA and the SAG AFTRA strikes. WGA is the Writers Guild of America, SAG AFTRA being, the Actors Guild. Both were on strike for different, very similar reasons. The three main reasons for both of them are very, very similar. First on being higher residuals for streaming, as it's pretty much non-existent right now. Second one being higher base.
I'm sorry, you keep going, but yeah, that the residuals seem like the music streaming residuals. Like
yes,
it's a pittance.
Yeah, and that's something that's going to be interesting too with the AI technology. Is I feel like it's something both sides are going to have to adapt to. So the second one is higher base pay for like hourly extras. For example, if you're a background extra, you might earn $100 a day. If you're in a more complex background role, or if you have a more costume, or you're dealing with makeup and all that kinds of stuff, your rate would go up. Say $100 a day, going up all the way up to like 1,000 or whatever. That I don't know the rates. That's just kind of general ballpark. So they want a 10% increase in the first year to match inflation. All the studios are like, no. And then the third one is kind of just AI technology and just kind of more guidelines around how that's going to work. For example, for Writers Guild, it's obviously stuff being written by AI. And for the Actors Guild, a big issue is kind of scanning actors digitally and replacing them with actors entirely. Background extras being a big thing. You watch Game of Thrones, you watch Star Wars, all the people in the background, they're saying is they would scan someone in, pay them once for scanning, and then they just use a digital double all the time instead of having actors, because they don't have to pay, these SAG AFTRA rates. They don't have to pay for costumes. They don't have to do this. They don't have to do that. There have been a few movies that have used totally CGI background, doubles, and it looks really bad. So those are the three main issues. The writer's strike has been going on for over 70 days now. SAG AFTRA just started this week. Oppenheimer had their premiere, and they had to start it 2 hours early, as all the actors could do the press tour. They did not stay for the movie. They started picketing because there are very strict guidelines with how the actors can, they can't work on any projects. They can't promote things publicly. They cannot appear on talk shows. They can't go to premieres. So it's, yeah. So
then the cast for Oppenheimer walk out of the premiere.
Well, they did the public part of the premiere, and they started 2 hours early, so before the strike started. They left the premiere. They didn't watch the movie with everybody. And what's really crazy is, and I think it's great, is all of these big name actors that aren't going to be financially affected by this strike and kind of their terms, because they're making like what $10-20 million a movie, which is outrageous. They are showing support. They are public, kind of being the public face of this thing right now.
Yeah, because nobody's going to listen to, the third camera grip on a movie.
Right.
They're going to listen to, Robert Downey Jr., Ron Perlman. Oh,
right.
Oh, this, famous people. Oh, Tom Cruise.
Right. And that's and then we're seeing just kind of the residuals some of these people are getting. Like, the writer of the She-Hulk episode that introduced Daredevils made $396 on residuals. Kimiko Glenn, who is an actress that has been in most of the run of Orange is the New Black, I think she's in the second through like the fifth season or something, revealed on TikTok yesterday that her last SAG AFTRA check for every episode she was in for like 3 seasons is like $30. Like, that's just insane.
It's nuts. I mean,
it is.
And I don't know what their paycheck was to begin with, but probably a lot of these people weren't, negotiated probably a lower rate because they weren't, famous or
right
more name at the time before they got the role. So now, they probably didn't get much money to begin with, and now they're not getting much money at all to end with.
No, absolutely. And Bob Iger, the current Disney CEO, made a comment basically saying that these the actors are being unreasonable right now, and it just absolutely, when you're making $30 million a year and your the amount of net worth you have over 5 years is $690 million, like, there is an issue here, and it's not the writers and the actors asking for some more money.
Yeah, all right. The 10 highest paid executives in Hollywood in the past 5 years. You got David Zaslav of Warner Brothers Discovery. He made just shy of $500 million. Bob Iger, over the past 5 years, made just shy of 200 at 195 million. Like, Reed Hastings and Netflix made 210 million.
Continually gives himself like $10 million bonuses, as Sean Gunn was talking about Gilmore Girls, and he's not seen a dime on it. I got it's
totally these actors and writers being totally unrealistic.
Oh, not right? It's not like these are the people that make the art.
How are these guys going to afford the new yacht?
I know. And here's I got the quote from Bob Iger right here. It's very disturbing to me. We've talked about disruptive forces on this business and all the challenges we're facing. The recovery from COVID, which is ongoing, it's not completely back. This is the worst time in the world to add to that disruption. and then Ron Perlman yesterday. Did you see that video or no?
Yes, yeah, I saw that. It's like he I'm gonna know where your house is, or
right. There is
executive said our current strategy is to allow things to drag on until union members start losing their apartments and losing their houses.
Yeah,
you're not coming off as the good guy saying stuff like that.
No, they're not. And here's the thing: is these studios right now have a very poor public image for a variety of reasons. First off, this shit they're pulling in regards to blaming the writers and the actors for wanting to be paid decently, wanting to be treated as people. Mm-hmm. And then also just the fact that these companies or these studios are just basically giant, corporations at this point. And right now, particularly with, after COVID and the social economic environment we're in, where we're seeing just kind of how fucking horrible and exploitative capitalism is as an economic system. Like it's just mind-boggling that they're just continuing to just be this clueless. And throughout the last 3 years of studios trying to figure out and trying to learn lessons from COVID and trying to like get people back and to see stuff, they just keep like like grabbing the wrong lessons and not learning, and they just keep shooting themselves in the foot. It's just insane
Yeah.
to me.
This was the first strike between both the writers and the actors since 1960, I believe.
Yep. And then you have the writer's strike. There's a famous one. It was 2007, 2008. A lot of TV shows suffered in quality because of that. We saw a lot more reality TV. Last actor's strike was at 1980, as VHS and home video was kind of becoming a force on the marketplace.
Yeah.
So the fact that both are on strike at the same time is just absolutely crazy. And the fact the writer's strike has been going on for over like 2.5 months now.
Mm-hmm.
And the studios just aren't even budging. It just shows how freaking like broken this whole system is.
Yeah.
They
can't do anything without actors unless they go the non-union route, which
right. And there are some shows being filmed right now in Europe, and because it's a different union there, they're able to continue. Like Game of Thrones is the main one that I've heard that is still filming right now. But the thing
it's
is
new age spaghetti westerns.
right. Well, that would be amazing. But without Clint Eastwood, it's for another couple of reasons right there.
Hey, well, just deep fake Clint Eastwood. There you go.
Right, yeah, AI technology.
If they want to deep fake actors, why not?
Right. But I mean, the other thing too is like the executives are looking at this at just purely profit, like short-term profit gains. Here's the thing: is like they're saying people are going to forget about it, people aren't going to care. But when fall comes around, you got all the fall TV shows. You got all these movies keep getting delayed. Like people are going to get angry. They're going to get upset. And a lot. And
if you don't get,
here's
sorry,
the list.
keep going.
I was going to say, here's the projects of shows that are affected by the SAG AFTRA strike. You can keep going while I find this.
People are going to be upset, like you said, when the new shows don't come out or new seasons don't come out. Like
Yeah.
the executives at the TV networks are not going to be happy when the ratings aren't very good, and
right.
then they'll blame the actors and writers for the poor performance that they have for their ratings and revenue stream because people aren't watching their shows.
Right. For shows and movies that are affected right now, we got Beetlejuice 2. Well, we got Deadpool 3. We got Gladiator 2. We got Juror 2, which is a Clint Eastwood project. I don't care. Lilo and Stitch live action, Minecraft, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2, which we are going to review Dead Reckoning Part 1 at the end of this episode. I forgot to mention that. My apologies. Mortal Kombat 2, Venom 3. And then there are just basically so many shows affected by the writer's strike right now. There's no talk shows right now. So it's just basically a total shutdown of Hollywood right now. And there hasn't, like you were saying, there hasn't been anything like this, from the 60s. So obviously what would be in the best interest for everyone is the studios to meet the demands of both guilds and, resume production so they can continue to put projects out. But also the studios have been seen learning a lot of the wrong lessons the last few years. Because of COVID, because of streaming, theatrical distribution, and the studio symbiotic relationship between that is very strained right now. Movies right now are not doing as well as they had in the past. They're making money and they're making quite a bit of money, but it's nowhere near what they wanted. And with the inflation of budgets, studios are starting to get concerned. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One is kind of streaming and studios putting all their eggs in the streaming basket. For example, Universal, you put out Fast X, and then a month later it's available to rent. They've been doing that with all their stuff. Yeah. And whenever I see an ad on my TV for like, oh, you can rent this movie now, after I saw it 2 weeks ago, it just cheapens the view of that movie to the public.
You used to have to wait half a year sometimes for a movie to come out to be able to rent.
Right. You'd have to.
That made it. I gotta watch that movie.
Right.
If I want to watch the movie, I gotta watch that movie now.
Right. And that's the thing.
If I wait for the video rental, I'm gonna have to wait 3 weeks because all the tapes are gonna be checked out by the time I get to the store.
Right.
I don't know, maybe it's a little bit before your time, but going
No, no,
blockbuster,
no. I get
the whole
Blockbuster and everything,
the
but
whole video was just blank.
the thing is, there is so much available to everyone at any given time. It just cheapens everything as a whole because everybody is so overwhelmed with how much content there is. I
Well,
don't. I don't.
at least they're not most of the time doing simultaneous releases anymore. I think they learned their lesson on that.
I mean, I'd say a month before, a month after release is pretty close to simultaneously.
Yeah.
But here's the thing too. It's just there is so much content out there, and it almost seems like the studios are training the movie going audience to look at something from a consumer's point of view. Like, watch this so you can consume next thing we got down the line, instead of looking at something as like a piece of art. So that already has kind of cheapened kind of this big IP driven movie making we've had the past few years. For example, can you like look at any of the past 5 Marvel movies besides like Guardians 3 and kind of like think about it in your head and kind of remember anything about it in like any significant way, or does it just kind of blur?
It blurs. It blurs.
Right.
Nothing is. I don't even remember the themes. The theme scores.
Right. And that's kind of that's an issue. And because these movie studios are basically corporations at this point, their whole end goal is financial viability versus kind of artistic integrity. And there is not a lot of directors right now that have carte blanche within the studio system. Like, you have Nolan, you have like Denis Villeneuve, you got kind of those names, but a lot of these people just don't have that.
No.
So it's a lot of just kind of focused, marketed, grouped, just kind of making stuff for the mass appeal. And
I wonder if they'll ever go back to what was it, the 70s? I can't remember the exact term for it, but it was the new wave directors.
Yeah, no, that's
like
something I want to get into too.
Like the new directors like Scorsese and
right.
Coppola, these directors, they were, not established totally at the time, but they made the studios like, here's money, make a movie.
Right. And like a lot of these directors warned about the studios being bought out by corporations. Like, they've been warning us about this. And
about it years ago.
I know Spielberg did, Ford Coppola, George Lucas left the studio system for this very reason. What's interesting is the amount of money movies cost. Like, you'll have a studio releasing 10 like 200 $300 million movies. Obviously they aren't making a lot of that back. Like at Indiana Jones right now costs $300 million to make. The reception has been very lukewarm at the box office.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's made, but it hasn't made that much, as much as they thought it was going to make.
Well, and the other thing too to consider when you look at like a movie's budget is that does not include marketing. And marketing for these kind of big movies is usually half the time of a budget. So for example, Indiana Jones cost 300 million to make. Marketing for it would probably be 150 million, just as a kind of average, ballpark estimate. So that is $450 million it has to make worldwide in order to break even. And so there's not a lot of profit being made in these types of movies. So what I would, hope the studio system would do is to invest in smaller movies. Maybe have 1 or 2 big tentpole pictures, like ones that you're pretty sure are going to do well. But instead of having, 5 Marvel movies that cost $200 million to make a year, release 6 or 7 movies that are $30 to $80 million. That way, if one doesn't do well, it's not a big loss. If one does well and does really well, you make a lot of profit, right? Joker cost $50 million to make. It made $1 billion. If Joker, if there's a movie that Joker cost $200 million to make and it only made $400 million at the box office, that's about 50 million profit, which is an insane amount of money. I'm not going to pretend to understand the costs of everything studio wise, but I feel like there is a lot of pocketing by executives and not investing in everything. Right, it's almost like that's been going on since the beginning of capitalism, and like we're now seeing the effects of it. I read this, I don't know if it's accurate or not, but it wouldn't surprise me. What the SAG AFTRA strike, what their demands for Netflix would
Mhm.
would be less than 1% of the revenue to give everybody. The pay
Less,
increases, yeah, to
less than
get to
1%.
less than 1%, be like 0.96% or something.
That's outrageous. That's an outrageous demand. That can't be met.
Yet the fucking CEO, he's making like giving himself 10-20 million dollar bonuses like every couple of months. It's just insane. These people are so clueless about how actors and writers live. They expect everything done for nothing. There are writers of major shows that are living in an apartment with 5 or 6 other writers because they cannot afford to live on their own. There are writers who have to pitch a show, have to do all this work for the show and not get paid at all. If the show doesn't get picked up, if it does get picked up, it's just such an exploitative
Mhm.
situation. And like that's not even talking about like the one major industry in Hollywood that is not unionized, and that's the visual effects industry. What is happening there is just beyond abhorrent. It's just awful. Like you heard about the Life of Pi company, right? The CGI company.
Life of Pi?
Yeah, the one
I've
with the
heard
tiger.
about,
Like
yeah, well,
the
yeah, the Life of Pi, yeah, the movie. I didn't know it was a company that named after them.
no, I'm talking
I
about
remember
no, I'm talking about the visual effects company that
okay.
made the effects for that movie. Have you heard about that whole situation or no? It was a big deal at the Oscars that year.
No, I didn't hear
Okay. Oh my god.
about that.
I'm about to blow your mind. This is fucking wild. There's actually a documentary on YouTube called Life After Pi that I recommend you watch. I recommend everyone listen to this watching because it's very eye-opening. They won visual effects, best visual effects at the Oscars.
Yeah.
The studio was going for bankruptcy that day. They win their Oscar, they're on stage, they're talking about it, and they quickly get booed off. The Jaws theme starts playing, and then they just get shoved off the stage. What happens with these visual effects companies? They're not unionized. They all want work. So say Marvel's got Thor 5 in the works, and they need this shot, this shot, this shot, this shot. So all these visual effects companies will underbid each other to try to get as much work for as
Mhm.
little as possible.
Yeah.
They're not unionized. They don't make residuals. Um, they are working 80 hours a week. There's burnt out. So there's been a lot of criticism right now about visual effects being really poor and people getting upset about that. It is not because the artists aren't doing good work or don't want to do good work. It is because they're extremely underpaid and incredibly overworked in a very exploitative process. So a lot of these visual effects companies will go under or they'll move to different countries where there's tax incentives.
Yeah, it's not the happy-go-lucky, relaxed work environment that you see on the making of documentaries for movies.
No, it's very much people sleeping in the
It's
office to try to finish a shot for a deadline.
it's a modern day sweatshop for movies.
And the thing is, there's like 30, there can be anywhere from 10 to 50, 20 different companies working on a single movie.
Yeah.
And it's just absolutely mind-boggling. The old days of CGI, it was very much you'd have ILM, you would have Weta doing an entire movie and taking their time with it and not rushing it out. And because a lot of these, big franchise movies, these big superhero movies are very much planned out on a release date schedule based off the name of the movie alone and not actually the movie, um it creates this whole system where people are rushing to the last minute to get these shots out. And that's another reason why I had issues with the Flash is because I can guarantee you that these artists happy to be working on the movie but are not happy with the quality of the work
Mm-hmm.
because they're rushed to do it. And they probably have another thing I heard is a director asking for a shot to be done and then asking it for it to be redone. So there's not so they're asking for all this work to be done on a single shot while getting paid the same. And it will be a completely different at the end from what they were planned for at the original.
Yeah. I remember hearing about the visual artist for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Into the Spider or Across the Spider? The second one.
Across the Spider-Verse.
Complaining about how the working hours were for that and redo. And the director was like, "Welcome to Hollywood."
Yeah, and it does not need to be like that.
No, I mean, get their idea. I get their point. It was like, yeah, you're a visual effects artist. Yeah, you're hired to do a job. Stop complaining. They didn't phrase it the best way possible.
Well, you know, they're looking at it's like, get the insane amount of work we want you to do done in such a short amount of time. If a movie needs to be delayed so you can give people time to work on it, fucking delay it. I don't care. I can wait, you know, like 3 or 4 months to go see Oppenheimer if they don't have the nuclear bomb, you know, done, or you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't
I
want to
don't.
see. I don't want to see a rush job that looks a quarter way complete, and the studio's like, good enough, good enough.
But
Throw
here's
it
the
out there.
thing, like,
And then
regardless,
they get complaints about the visual effects from the press, and we're like, well, we tried.
here's
So then it reflects badly on that artist or that visual effects house. They'll never get another job commissioned from the industry, and then they'll
re,
have to go try to find another job.
regardless of a studio releasing something half-assed or taking their time to deal with it, it should not come at the cost of someone's mental well-being. Is kind of the point I'm
No,
trying to make. So, like, it's a big thing in video games too, is people crunch. You know, crunch is kind of the term for it, because you basically put a huge amount of work in such a short amount of time. For example, you know, a big game supposed to come out in December. It's November and they still have all these bugs, they have all this polishing to do, so you have everybody in the studio working 100-hour weeks. That is not at all a healthy environment.
no.
It just isn't.
But then they'll put the game out anyway, and then they'll have to put a major patch out immediately
Right.
after release.
Right, and that's and again, I'm not saying this is okay, but that's kind of where games are different. I guess not really, because there have been movies that have been, I guess, patched as they come out in theaters.
Cat's got a
Yes,
patch after a week.
to fix some of the CGI, because again, they are rushed to the absolute limit to get all these effects done. And I heard that whole production is a mess because the director just had no experience with that amount of visual work.
I saw Cats,
I saw
and
Cats too. I don't want to talk about it.
the entire time I'm like, oh my god, what am I watching?
Yeah.
It's like their feet aren't touching the ground. And it's like it was like this uncanny thing where I kept noticing the feet on the ground. It looked like they were floating on the ground.
Yes. I did a
Something
double.
entire movie was just weird.
It was. I did a double feature of Uncut Gems then Cats, and Uncut Gems is just a movie just makes you feel very uneasy. It's like an anxiety attack. The movie just keeps getting worse and worse. I go into Cats. There's like 10 other people in the theater. Within the first 5 minutes, 5 people walk out, and it's like all old people too, like people who would be like, I paid my money to see this movie, I'm gonna finish it, god damn it.
I like this at the play at the Broadway.
Right, I have never tried so hard to fall asleep during a fucking movie. I just had my eyes shut the whole time. I'm just like, I'm not watching this.
I've never walked out of a movie, and Cats wasn't the worst movie I've ever seen. It was I was too curious and too amazed at what I was watching and too confused by what I was watching to want to walk out, because I wanted to see how this thing was gonna. God damn! I got Judi Dench sing talking and cat floating off in a balloon at the end. That was great.
No, it wasn't.
Hey, at least we didn't get the buttholes cut.
I'd rather have that at this point.
James Corden's butthole. Yeah.
You know what? Maybe on second thought, no. Anyways, going back to the more pressing issues at hand. I'm sorry. Oh my god.
We've run off track again.
We did, yes. Okay, going back to the more pressing issues at hand. People are not being drawn to the theaters like they used to.
No.
A lot of movies that should be doing well are not doing well. And theaters are blaming the studios are blaming the theaters, and basically what I've seen is people, you know, both blame each side. There was an article maybe a month or so ago, and I shared it with you. I think it was like Wired or something, and they talk about how much the studios wanted these theaters to move to digital, and how at first they paid for all the costs and everything, but when it comes to maintaining this equipment, when it comes to upgrading this equipment, when it comes to fixing this equipment or getting, you know, the studios want no part of it at all, and the theaters are not able to do that. So it creates an environment where theaters are not in their best shape in order to view things at their best.
Yeah. It's not like the old days where the 35 projector you just had to have
Right.
a technician.
Well,
Our technician had $1 million insurance to fix the machines on the 35. So I don't know what the rate was for the digitals when they got moved in.
well, I also imagine film projectors would be easier to fix because it's all mechanical versus like software or digital.
There's only a couple of things that I bothered to ask the price on for the 35s, and the reflector, the lamp house is basically a giant flashlight, right? So you get that reflector dish, that silver
Yeah.
that the lamp sits in. That's $5,000 according to the repairman. The little micro switch that um, the the there's a bunch of little micro switches. $75. A bulb costs about $600.
Yeah.
And you go through the bulb every 1,200 to 1,700 hours.
And looking at kind of the things for digital projectors, it's anywhere from like 50 to 200K depending on what needs to be done, whether it be upgrading to laser, whether it be changing out one of the bulbs. These digital projectors, the ones that aren't laser are cheaper, but they rely on these light bulbs. And the thing is, studios will wait, or theaters, I'm sorry, not studios, theaters, because of how expensive they are, will wait till the light bulbs are pretty much done. So if you're watching a movie and the light bulb's not at its optimal like light level, it's going to affect the viewing experience.
Yeah, the longer the bulb runs, it starts flickering on screen where you don't get an even light. You'll see
Yeah.
this kind of pulsing kind of flicker.
But like we used to work at AMC, so we kind of got an idea of kind of on a day-to-day how theaters are run. I'm not too familiar with the business stuff. I mean, you are to an extent, like you're saying, the projectors and stuff, as you were kind of a supervisor. However, I don't like going to AMC these days. I just go to it because of the A-list, because of how many like fucking movies we see. I
Yeah,
feel really I feel really bad about going to visit the devil's playground, so to speak.
yeah, I don't remember what our percentage was for the box office. How much money the theater would keep versus how much money went to the studio, the distributors. That's why concession prices are so expensive.
That's how
Is
you
you're
make
paying
profit. Yeah.
concessions is what you're paying to keep the theater open,
Right,
basically.
right. That's why popcorn's $8 when it costs probably 30 cents to produce it, because that's kind of how they make profit. And from my understanding, the last few years, especially with Disney and stuff, is they take a
Oh,
they fuck
Disney had
theaters over. They fuck theaters over really bad. They'll take
Dis-
what 90%, 95% of ticket sales in like the first like 3 weeks, and then that's when theaters can start making money. And they dictate how many screens play so many movies. And that was an issue with Tarantino with Hateful Eight and Disney with the Force Awakens. Is Tarantino had his whole like 70mm roadshow, and Disney's like, no, we're playing fucking Force Awakens in that theater. You can play it for 2 days. I mean, that type of shit. And it's just kind of like that's another thing. It's just kind of how much of these big studios take up the space in theaters. You could have a 16 screen theater, and it'd be 5 screens would be playing Star Wars, 3 screens would be playing like Toy Story 4. You know what I mean? It's just it's not sustainable, especially with kind of people moving on away from that with streaming. And the studios have their eggs all in one basket with streaming, and they don't want it to fail. And the whole thing with streaming is you can view all this content in one place. You don't have to worry about cable. You don't have to worry about DVDs and shit. But when there's like 30, there's 6-7 different streaming services, and they all have different content. It just creates this, this viewpoint, this kind of situation for the consumer where they can't have everything all at once. So then you end up paying as much as cable. A big thing with streaming too, when it comes to like cost, is the amount it costs to upkeep it, because it's all service, right?
Yeah.
A studio is getting like anywhere from like $8 to $20 per month per one person for to stream. Cost wise, that does not pan out for how much content's on there. For example, if you have 30 million subscribers to Disney Plus, and they're watching it for one show, but also you're spending all this money on all these other shows, right? There's gonna, it's not gonna be sustainable. We've already seen that with studios taking content completely off streaming services, which I find just fucking scary. because then that content's lost forever. They don't have it available physically. You can't view it streaming. Willow. I wanted to finish Willow. I can't because it's not on fucking Disney Plus anymore because they wanted to remove it to save on server costs or some bullshit like that. Or like Warner Brothers had been doing with Batgirl, with with Westworld, with Raised by Wolves, as they did with the Scooby-Doo movie. They took it off for some tax incentive or some shit. And so you can already see that these studios are starting to get scared with how all this crap is cutting into their profits.
Mm-hmm.
It's very reactionary. These studios are doing without thinking long term, and I just I don't know. There are so many issues at once going on with all of this. Physical media in the 20 years ago was a good way for studios to offset the cost of a movie not doing well financially. Movie couldn't do well box office wise, but if it sells 10 million copies at $20 a pop, that's some profit right there for the studio. They moved so far into streaming that a lot of people kind of don't view that as a thing anymore. However, I do feel like studios are going to go back into that, as we've already seen kind of with Disney kind of saying so, and some of the releases they've been having, and them licensing stuff out to Criterion with WALL-E, which was kind of crazy to see. Paramount and Warner Brothers creating their studio distribution system where they distribute their titles codependently, and they have a deal going on that for 10 years. The amount of all these kind of smaller labels popping up licensing these bigger titles, what I see is something similar to the vinyl industry right now, where it's very much a cinephile collector kind of preservationist environment.
I think it's a very niche market, and now
it is.
It exploded. It exploded.
It has, and that's what I like. It hasn't exploded to the point that vinyl has, but I feel like that's going to happen. Like you know me, people are
going to rediscover the joys of physical copies of ownership.
Right. And the quality is so much better. Like if you watch a movie streaming on 4K or you watch the 4K Blu-ray, it is like a night and day difference. Even stuff streaming in 1080p, because it's compressed. Because a movie average has about 30 to like 50 megabits per second for like just kind of the encode. If it's streaming, it's 3 to 4 because it's got to fit a huge amount of data in a small file, so it doesn't cut on bandwidth costs. Yeah. The quality's so much better. There's special features. You actually get to own it. They can't take it. You can't take Willow off Disney Plus if you got a disc for it. Like me, I'm a huge physical media supporter to a detriment. Got like 500 Blu-rays. Like it's like I'm all for it. Not everyone's for that, but I do feel it picking up. I feel like it's gonna get to the point vinyl is right now at some point in the next few years, and I feel like studios aren't. They're going to focus more on that as a way to make profit. For example, just kind of talking about just kind of the issue streaming has caused for studios. Look at Pixar. They would release stuff not in theaters. They'd release it on Disney Plus during the pandemic, and they would then they would release stuff a month after it's in theaters, as kind of theaters kind of opened up again. And that it's expensive to go to the movies, particularly right now with kind of inflation and just kind of the issues we got going on in our society, so to speak. So if a family of 4 wants to go see a Pixar movie, that's like $70 right there when they can just go watch it in a month when it's on Disney Plus. So Disney kind of created that issue for themselves, and it's kind of interesting to see that. But also just talking about how fucking clueless these studios are. Look at Warner Brothers right now. Look at the state Warner Brothers is in right now. No one has a positive image of Warner Brothers right now. They have a positive image of Warner Brothers in the past. They don't right now. 2020 rolled along. They decided to release all of their theatrical movies day and date on HBO Max. That pissed off a lot of creators. They ruined the relationship with Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan was their one prestige director. He always worked with Warner Brothers for the most part. He was upset. He's a big believer in the theatrical experience. They're still trying to repair that relationship with Nolan. They gave him a 6-figure check, like carte blanche, do whatever you want with as a favor of goodwill. I don't think he's coming back to Warner Brothers. You think so?
It would take a lot.
It would.
I don't. Maybe if all the executives that were there are still there, left,
basically went down on their hands and knees and started kissing his feet type thing.
or got fired by the shareholders and got replaced by new people that cared a little bit more.
Right.
Maybe, but doubtful. Very doubtful.
Yeah. And like his deal with Universal was very interesting because it was Universal could not release a movie 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after Oppenheimer, have a $100 million budget. He had final cut and he had 20% of ticket sales. That is not a very common deal in this industry when it comes to this type of stuff.
You only get that kind of sweet deal if you're a prestige or you're a big heavy hitter.
Right. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with Mission Impossible, which I mean, it opened really well. It's done 250 million dollars worldwide, and it's 5-day opening weekend because they opened it 3 days early because of the competition this week.
$80 million domestically,
right, over 5 days. And that's not as, I mean, the thing with this movie too is this series is one that has done well over time. It's one that has legs, as older demographics see it like a week down the line. Next week is very packed. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens. It'll be interesting to see how Oppenheimer does. I think Barbie's gonna do really well. I think the kind of meme marketing for Barbenheimer, so to speak, is helping both of those. But it's very interesting to Barbie
has been doing a very good job of its marketing.
I know. Got the
Oppenheimer hasn't been that. I haven't noticed that much on TV, but every time you go to the theater.
Oh my God, when we saw Mission Impossible, that trailer. That trailer was fucking
countdown.
dope.
Every day must be a new trailer down.
5, 4, 3 days.
In 5 days.
The movie event of the year. See it on the biggest screen in 1 week. Oppenheimer. Rated R. That's another thing too, is I wonder if the rating and the length of the movie is going to affect that one's at the box office.
The people that are going to go watch it.
Oh no, definitely, no, absolutely.
But the repeat viewings, there'll be a few. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. Barbie is going to be Barbie.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I feel like studios got to stop being so fucking greedy. I realize I think it's gonna get really bad to the point it hurts the pocketbooks really bad, and of course, whoever has the money is the one who makes the rules essentially. But also when they start hurting, it's gonna hurt them. They're gonna start making some changes. I feel like, I think honestly the outcome of both these strikes is gonna have a lot of showing, it's going to say a lot of how things are going to move going forward. I don't think the business model they have right now is at all sustainable when it comes to streaming, when it comes to theatrical distribution. They got to get people back in theaters. And as I was saying earlier, I hate fucking AMC. You go in the theater, it's filthy. You know the employees are 16-year-olds that just goofing around and crap. Everything's so expensive. You got 30.
I haven't met an AMC employee yet that looked like they cared that they were there.
Right. I was waiting in line to get a drink, and there was a guy like goofing off with his friend while I was the only one there for like 2 minutes, and I'm just like, can I fucking get my Coke, please? Like, Jesus Christ, it's not that hard. I mean, I used to work in theater. I know it's not fun. You used to work in theater. It's not that fun. However, there's a little bit of kind of professionalism when it comes to that. I'm not asking, for Chick-fil-A, my pleasure type shit. Just kind of just like.
Yeah, I'm not asking for the Ray experience.
Right.
Ray.
By the way, fuck Chick-fil-A.
For those people who are listening, Ray was a manager when we were at the theater, and he was.
Oh my God! Okay, you're talking about that, Ray. Yeah.
So positive to aggressively positive.
Yeah.
Really, really nice guy, but he took a positive experience a little maybe too far.
Yeah.
People, I remember when he got the white gloves that I would use to build the movies, the 35 millimeter prints up. You're supposed to wear white cotton gloves.
You get fingerprints all over everything. Yeah.
I used them.
You didn't use them? Oh my God, that's why it's
I never touched them. If I touched a film, it was the touching the edges.
Right.
I never touched the film. He put the white gloves on, and they never fit fully, so they're
Oh, he wore them. You didn't, is what you're saying.
He went to the front doors, and people were coming in. Hi, how you doing? I'm Ray. Welcome to
he wore those to look more fancy than he is. He wasn't wearing them for.
He wanted people to have a white glove experience when they visit.
Oh my God,
it lasted 30 minutes.
That's
But that's the type of guy Ray was, and he wanted to try to make work fun.
But I mean, here's kind of like, we have a mutual friend who managed theaters for years, and he's got his own thoughts on kind of what needs to be happening, and I tend to agree with him. There does not need to be like 20, there's not need to be 2,000 AMCs in the country. Shrink the amount of theaters, focusing on the theaters you do have, like maintaining them, giving positive experiences, make people want to go back to the theaters. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, if I knew the answer, I'd probably be a millionaire right now. If the studios knew the answer, they would not be having these issues they're having right now. So I'm not going to say we have the answers, but you got to find a way to get people back in the theaters. You got to make films that people want to see. You have to treat the people making your movies with respect, pay them with respect. It's the exploitation of this system we got going on right now for union workers, the WGA, SAG AFTRA, and for freaking non-union workers. Look at the visual effects industry. There just needs to be a lot of change. And you want to know something? There is one man who thinks he's a savior of cinema, and that man is Tom Cruise.
Thinks he is. He is the savior.
Right. So if you've seen any interview with Tom Cruise at a premiere or anything for the new Top Gun, he's all about, you got to see the movie, you got to have the popcorn, you got to have the butter. And like, it comes across as a bit kind of like desperate, as everybody's kind of saying this, but also like, I can't blame them. Like how, you know what I mean? He was upset about Mission Impossible only having 1 week in IMAX, which I understand because of Oppenheimer, coming out the following week, and Nolan just being whenever it comes to IMAX, he gets whatever the fuck he wants, essentially.
Yeah.
But then he kind of he talked. There's an interview with like the CEO of IMAX, and they're talking about, has Tom Cruise calmed down? He's like, yeah, I think he realizes that it's good for people to go back to the movies in general. So there's that whole campaign where they're seeing movies for each other's movie, like Tom Cruise, Christopher McQuarrie were showing their tickets for Barbie, for Oppenheimer, Nolan and Cillian Murphy for the reverse, Barbie, Mission Impossible, and Barbie, same type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
He is, without a doubt, the person who is the most dedicated, not just from an actor standpoint, but from being a pure entertainer and giving people an experience they cannot get elsewhere.
Yeah, I agree with that. He puts the work in.
He does, and it shows, and his enthusiasm shows. And regardless of what people think of his beliefs in him as a person, which he's nuts. He's nuts. He's nuts behind the camera. He's nuts outside the camera. He's nuts at home. He's nuts on set. You know what I mean? He's an interesting fella.
He's an intense fella. Yeah,
he is. And the thing though is, he is one of the only people that is putting it all for this at great danger to himself. Mission Impossible movies, he does all his own fucking stunts, and two, he's rock climbing
as much as they will allow him to.
Right. And, there's that story with the tower in 4, where someone's telling about like, oh yeah, the safety guy said I couldn't do that, so I fired him and got a new safety guy.
Yeah, I remember Matt Damon telling me that story.
He's like,
I want to do this. And I was like, and the safety guy says, it's too dangerous. Like, so I got a new safety guy.
And then Matt Damon's like, I just draw the line at like, that's not safe. He's a safety guy. And the crazy thing is,
it's unsafe. It's maybe a little bit unsafe to do personally, but it's like, I'm the producer, I'm the star, I'm gonna do it.
Right. And the thing is the crazy with all this shit he's done, like the only major injury he has was in Mission Impossible Fallout, jumping between buildings and like breaking his ankle, and like they actually use that on film.
And he still completed the shot.
He still completed it, and that's a shot in the film. So, Mission Impossible 2, the rock climbing. Mission Impossible 4, the tower, the tower in Abu Dhabi, where he's climbing outside of it. Mission Impossible, 5, him on top of a fucking cargo plane, hanging to the side of it as it's taking off. Him driving on a motorcycle on the speedy highway at high speed with no helmet. Just absolutely crazy stuff. Mission Impossible 6,
learning how to hold his breath for over 5 minutes.
Yes.
Just to do it. He could have CGI'd that and done
Absolutely.
wet for dry or dry for wet.
Mission Impossible Fallout, the helo diving, you know what I mean? The orbital diving.
And the helicopter piloting.
The helicopter piloting, climbing the helicopter. all the driving on the streets in Paris. You know what I mean? It's just, and the thing is, it's not like he practices for like a month or so. Like, for example, the skydiving or the orbital, diving thing in Mission Impossible Fallout.
Yeah, the Halo jump. Yeah,
he, for 3 years he's training for it. He's getting his certifications. He's practicing, rehearsing it on a giant like jet engine that's created this skydiving simulator. He does orbital jumps for a whole year. He does like 2 or 3 a day, breathing pure oxygen, going up into the upper atmosphere and jumping down. So it's not like he is putting all of his energy and effort into these stunts so they can be done as safely and as practically as possible.
Yeah, and he has to hit a mark in the middle of the air.
And he's acting while he's doing it too.
He has to hit a mark 3 feet away from a cameraman, full face on, so that you can see that's my face. And then he flies away from the camera. It's like,
and the cameraman is jumping out backwards first with his huge ass IMAX camera on his head. He is looking he's doing the focus pulling purely by sight. He's not looking through a lens or anything. And they got like two chances to take, get the shot. Just,
because of the light and the time of day that they're shooting.
Right.
To fit into that scene. Yeah, they only have a certain amount. Yeah.
And the Mission Impossible series is like the one of the few series where each installment just tops the last. From a cinematography standpoint, from an acting standpoint, from filmmaking standpoint, the movies keep getting better and better. And it's not just that he's acting and he's doing the stunts; he is so involved in the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us to our review of Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. Peter.
Well, even then, getting off Mission Impossible, Top Gun,
exactly,
flying the airplane,
having all the actors kind of learn how to do this shit, doing the G so you can feel it in their faces, so it feels real. And that brings us to Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. Pete, what did you think?
I didn't like it.
Are you serious?
I loved it.
You're fucking fired. Get off the show. I'm doing it solo now.
I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was great. It was very. Each movie seems to try to one up itself over the next movie, so it becomes harder and harder for me to say which one I like the most. I really enjoyed this movie.
No, definitely, and this one is interesting because it's all the other movies are kind of front loaded with stunts and in the middle have a stunt, but this movie just saves its whole wad, so to speak, till the end of the movie.
It has a good chase in the middle, a good refresher to get you pumped up and invested, and then like that last.
And it's like both major sequences are combined in an interesting way.
You get a moving train, you get a steam train, and then you go do a fight scene on top of the train while it's moving in real life, and it's not doubles computer generated. It's actual. It's like, I haven't seen people running on top of a train since the Great Train Robbery in the 70s with Sean Connery.
And then you got Tom Cruise jumping a motorcycle off a cliff, free diving down to try to catch a train. He's doing that all for real. He spent like 3 years practicing it. Like they used like all these like models and stuff to figure out the best way to go about it. It's just, whoo, like you feel it. Like I don't know about you, but I was in my seat and I just like I tensed up because it just felt like, you know what I mean? It just, you can tell that it was actually him, and it just like he's fucking like everybody in the theater was just silent.
That was a fun part in the theater. You hear one person go, "Whoa!"
Right,
and nothing else. You could hear a pin drop in that theater when they're in that scene until the sound cut back in.
I know,
because it was silent. Once he jumps off, it's silent.
Like it's a very short part of the movie. It's maybe like a minute at most, probably less. But man, is it fucking insane! Like holy shit. The movie as a whole, I really enjoyed it. My main complaint with it is because it is kind of the first part of 2 movies. The first third of it is very kind of setting things up, so it doesn't quite feel as have the same flow as Mission Impossible movies in the past.
Yeah.
But the beginning sequence, kind of showing the villain being AI and just kind of this Russian submarine that's testing it, and it being used to trick the Russians against themselves, was really well done. It felt like kind of like an old Showa Godzilla movie with the submarine shit or something. I don't know. It was kind of cool. Still need to see Das Boot, so I don't know if that's kind of similar.
Not really.
No, okay.
And it's such a divergent of technology. They're not controlling the torpedo by the joystick.
Yeah.
These movies are like the old James Bond movies from the 60s where the Russians are the bad guys, or there's one super agent that can save everything. But it's more smart than the old James Bond movies,
No,
where
definitely.
they kind of got very tongue in cheek, and these take everything very serious.
And the whole movie is basically, I mean, we're not going to spoil it, but basically the whole premise is there is a key that can control this AI called Dead Reckoning, and the AI is kind of out in the loose and causing a lot of havoc on the world, and every military kind of wants it to be able to control it for their own means. And it's freaking brilliant to make AI a villain in kind of today's climate, especially with the writer's strike, especially with streaming. That is how involved Tom Cruise is to the theatrical filming experience. He made the villain of his movie a freaking AI.
Yeah, the only big complaint I had with the movie was that the sequence after the beginning, where a bunch of these characters, Kittredge, the Secretary of Defense, and some generals are in one office room, and they're talking about the entity and what it is and what it can do and why they want it. That was the only scene that seemed kind of clunky to me, because it's all exposition about what this thing is and the stakes.
But it's very tongue-in-cheek with kind of referencing
everything after that is full bore,
right.
And it's not a Tom Cruise movie if he's not sprinting along.
He's on top of an airport, running the whole top of the airport. It's great.
And then he's running in Venice across the Doge's palace. It's like, yeah, I've been there. I've been to the Doge's palace in Venice. It's like, it's not that empty.
Right. Yeah, Carrie Elwes was great in that whole sequence, because he was very tongue-in-cheek talking about the IMF, Impossible Mission Force. Haley Atwell's in it, and boy is she great. She's a lot of fun to watch. She's a thief who gets mixed in with Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise, and all this madness, and she's very much don't know if you can trust her, that type of stuff. And
yeah, she's a professional thief, but she's a fish out of water when she gets into Tom Cruise's world.
Yeah, she doesn't quite know what she got herself into, and he's like trying to convince her that I'm after your best interest, like I want your safety at heart, and she's like, nah, okay, maybe. Benji, Simon Pegg is great. Like a lot of the main cast, Ving Rhames as Luther. I love how he's kind of the voice of reason in these movies now. He's just kind of that voice, kind of just saying things for what they are, and just kind of, just the last movie in particular, talking about Ethan and his wife from 3, and just kind of their relationship and stuff. He's kind of like that, the person you listen to if you want some guidance.
Yeah.
Benji is, of course, the clueless tech guy, as he has been in the last movies. Like, there's a whole sequence at the beginning in an airport where Tom Cruise is trying to meet up with the person that will have, one half of this key that controls the AI Dead Reckoning. And somehow there's might be a bomb involved. And Simon Pegg, Benji, is trying to unlock it, and it's riddle based. So he says like, tries to say this riddle, and like, Luthen Ving Rhames is like, oh, I'm great at riddles, and quickly talks to Ethan, hey, what's the solution for this riddle? It's just like, the banter is great.
Yeah. Like, and Cruise keeps going, is there anything going on? I was like, no, nothing to worry about. And like, then by the way, do you know this riddle? It's like, it's like, then he keeps asking, is there something I should know about, worry about?
And then, there is this guy who's called, his name's Gabriel, and he's kind of basically the human liaison for the AI, essentially. He's the one that kind of gets stuff done, and the AI kind of shows him just goes through all these computations of what the likely outcome of each situation is, so he knows how to react accordingly. And he's really freaking good. Vanessa Kirby is back as her character, and she's as lovely as ever. There's
she's a black marketer from the previous movie.
Yep, Fallout.
And I forgot that her character is the daughter of Max, the arms dealer from the original movie, played by Vanessa.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Wikipedia says that Isai Morales, the guy who plays Gabriel, on Wikipedia it says he's an old friend and ally of Ethan prior to Ethan becoming an IMF agent. And
Yeah,
that's you never have a backstory on Ethan. This is the first movie I can remember that actually, starts to develop
yeah, and there's this
before he was an agent. He's always just been the agent.
there's this flashback they play repeatedly through the movie where it's Tom Cruise and Gabriel kind of earlier in their history, and like we don't quite know the story. We just know that someone, a woman Tom Cruise cared about is dead, and it seems like Gabriel's at fault. I feel like a lot of this will be more developed in part 2, as this is the first part.
Yes, that must be the flashback. Must be the part where
they're gonna de-age him.
They were going to de-age Tom Cruise to 1980s Tom Cruise, and the director thought that was just too distracting to see Top Gun Tom Cruise.
And the whole end of the movie becomes a fight to who gets the key. And it's just one, like the whole train set piece is just astonishing, especially after the train crashes and just kind of what happens afterwards. Like the movie's it's just pure thrill. It's pure cinema. You know what I mean? It's just pure escapism. You're just watching all this grand shit happen for real on screen.
Yeah, that's not a spoiler that the train car crashes, because they've had that in all the promotional
marketing. Yeah,
since the beginning. Tom Clemente, is that how you say your name?
Yeah, no, that's right. She's the henchman, and she's great too. Like, holy crap.
Yeah, I asked you in the car on the way home. I was like, "Who's that crazy French lady?" And you said, "Oh, that's Mantis from Marvel."
Yeah, you're like, what? You're right.
It's like her character is great. Her character is just this insane agent of chaos that's partnered with Gabriel. She doesn't really say much. She's the silent heavy of the relationship, and she's just her character is just hilarious because she just doesn't care. She's having a hoot.
Just out to cause chaos. And like her whole outfit and like the party sequence where she's got like the makeup and kind of the like sword and shit, it's so good. Everything about this movie is so damn good. It seems like the second one will have some underwater action, so maybe it's a bad joke, by the way. The Titan thing was actually them testing for it. Oh,
Too
God.
soon.
Too soon. A bunch of billionaires dead too soon. We're getting canceled. No, I mean it was great, and like we love movies. That's why we do this shit. And 10 out of 10 for me. Just from the experience. It's a thrill. Like, go to the biggest screen you can see it. We saw it in IMAX. You're usually not big about seeing stuff in IMAX, but for this one, I feel like you felt it was worth it, right?
Yeah, this is one of the few movies that IMAX, the biggest screen you can possibly find, the best sound system you can possibly find. See this on that. Some movies are, see it on IMAX, and you see it and they're like,
Right.
This movie deserves it.
No, definitely.
Cinematography, the locations, the acting, the writing. I love the plot armor they have for the movie, though.
Right.
The AI can predict anything that's ever going to happen and all the possibilities. So no matter how outlandish everything gets, this is what was going to happen anyway.
No plot holes here. I guess the one complaint I had, and maybe this just because I didn't do enough research ahead of time, which is that's on me. Is it was a lot of it was filmed with the digital IMAX cameras, and movies in the past, particularly Fallout, when stuff was filmed with those IMAX cameras, it had the expanded IMAX ratio, so you had the full screen filled. This was all a 2:3:5 ratio. So I was under the impression like all the bike jumping, all the train stuff would be the expanded ratio. Because even on the Blu-ray or the 4K for Rogue One, I mean not Rogue One, Fallout, not Star Wars, Rogue One, Fallout. God damn it, I did it again. Fallout, as he's climbing the helicopter at the end, the frame slowly opens from a 2:3:5 to like a 1:8:5 ratio, and I thought that was really cool. And I was expecting something like that here, and there it wasn't. Not at all a detriment to the film, just kind of like I wish it would have taken more advantage of kind of the IMAX real estate they have with the screen there.
Yeah.
But overall, 10 out of 10. You'd recommend it. I'd recommend it. See it. Like Tom Cruise is is the savior of cinema, and he needs all the support he can get. But you know what? Do not join Scientology. It's a weird, freaking exploitative cult. Before we wrap up, Pete, is there anything you want to add about anything we've discussed today?
No, I think we pretty much covered things. And people need to be paid better. Stay away from AI doubling people. You know, if you're gonna double somebody, pay them double the rate.
All right.
And things have to change before they get better. And things are gonna get worse before they get better.
Right. As to quote the Dark Knight, the night is darkest just before the dawn.
Yeah,
And the thing is, this is all dependent on money. Like basically, these are all corporations run by Wall Street. So until it starts hurting them really bad, then and the negative it's before things are going to start changing. So I hope things change for the better quick, but also that a lot of this has just been kind of wishful thinking.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, executives, wealthy people aren't going to give anything they can. They're going to keep as much as they can for themselves.
It's just fucking crazy how much these executives make, and these comments they're making basically saying, oh, we wish these people lose their homes before they decide to reason with us. There is not a fucking reason the writer's strike should have been going on for 70 plus days. No. Actors strike hopefully gets resolved soon, but I don't see that happening anytime soon with what's been going on.
Yeah.
I'm surprised the Directors Guild strike went on so quickly. And from my understanding, there might be a producers strike too coming soon. So it's kind of, Hollywood's in kind of a volatile spot right now. So you know how we're going to do our part to fix that. Peter, next week is Barbenheimer. So next Kinozoid, we will be going over Barbie and Oppenheimer, and we also got an invite to a advanced screening of the A24 horror movie Talk to Me, so we will cover that as well. So next week will be packed with all the Barbenheimer goodness, the Kino event of the century. Thank you so much for joining me today, Pete, on this discussion on the situation with the film industry right now, and to just praise Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. All hail Tom Cruise, movie Jesus. I'm going to get a lot of hate for saying that. So without further ado, thank you so much, Peter, for joining me this week on Kinozoid. I am David Frauci.
I'm Peter.
He's Peter. And follow us on YouTube. You listen to this on Spotify, Google Podcasts, whatever. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. We're on this new thing called Threads, which, by the way, I watched the actual movie Threads last week, which is one of the most disturbing movies you can ever see about what happens after a nuclear war. Because I've seen it years before, and I just all the memes on Threads about Threads was kind of funny. So I'm just gonna watch this movie. And then I watch it, and I'm like, there's a reason it's been 6 years since I've last seen this. That was not a fun day. So thank you so much.
I think I watched a lot more fun things than you did, I guess.
Yeah,
I watched the monster. There's another name for it. It was in the theater. We were going to watch it. Humanoids from the Deep.
Oh yes, that's a fun one.
Yeah, it's kind of sleazy, but it's fun than a nuclear apocalypse.
And we're seeing Alligator tomorrow, which you have not seen, but it's a blast. Like, trust me, it's a blast. You'll love it. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Peter. Be sure to follow. Do whatever you need to do. And without further ado, see you guys next time. And remember, stay celibate for cellular. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.